Live look at the Capitol at 5 minutes before the top of the hour. Welcome back to Morning Joe as we launch the fourth hour. There is some movement on Capitol Hill to get a government funding bill passed, but it may not amount to much. The Senate yesterday advanced a stopgap bill to fund the government until mid-November, a measure unlikely to pass the House. Meanwhile, the House voted to open debate on 4 funding bills, none of which would ultimately get through the Senate. Speaker Kevin McCarthy, for his part, is blaming the House's failure to pass a government funding bill on President Biden.
All the president has to do is say, you know what? As one of my fundamental jobs as the president of the United States is to secure a border. So that's and that border is not secure. Secure that border, and we'll be able to keep it all open and keep it all working.
Are you willing to shut down the government if you do not get border security a deal that you are having?
Let's be very clear. It would not be on us.
Joining us now, U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. I guess first question for you, Mr. Secretary, is this Joe Biden's fault? And what about the crisis of the border pertaining to the big picture in terms of challenges he should address, given that he has an election coming up?
Yeah, of course that's a challenge. And the irony here is that these same House Republicans have proposed extreme cuts, some of which would reduce the number of CBP agents. And they're looking at a shutdown that would mean, whether it's the law enforcement people working at the border federally, TSA officers, military members, or air traffic controllers, they wouldn't be getting paid. Look, everybody knows that this is an issue that has come up. This shutdown threat has come up because extreme Republicans in the House are threatening to do it. And all the Speaker has to do is live up to a deal that he already made with the President of the United States, that most House Republicans already voted for. Remember, this was supposed to have been resolved earlier this year when the Speaker shook hands with the President on a deal that, by the way, wasn't easy for anybody to accept. There were cuts to transportation grant programs that I was hoping to do a little bit more with, but we all saw that that deal was what it was going to take to resolve these spending questions, only to have extreme Republicans in the House catapult us back into this position where they're asking us to choose between either extreme cuts that would mean less railroad safety inspections, less ability to modernize air traffic control, and yes, less security at the border, or a shutdown, which would also be incredibly disruptive and harm everything from our economy to our security.
So if there was a shutdown from the perspective of a transportation secretary, what impact would it have?
Well, right away, air traffic controllers would stop getting paid. And just think about the stress that comes with this job on a normal day. Think about what we are asking these thousands of air traffic controllers to do every single day to keep us safe, to maintain the record of U.S. aviation as the safest, most complex system in the world. And then add to that the stress of showing up to work without having to get paid because of politics. Another thing that happens is that while those workers would keep going to the towers to work, we would not be able to add staff because we can't train them. It shuts down training completely. And remember, part of what is at stake in getting this right is to have air travel flow the way it's supposed to flow. We went through terrible disruptions last year. We're in much better shape this year. Cancellation rates so far for this year about 1.6%. Keeping it below 2% has been a big priority for me. I cannot guarantee that we could keep that up if we had air traffic control training ground to a halt because of an extreme Republican shutdown.
I want to ask you about the UAW strike, but first, just what's the end game here? What should happen so that we don't have a shutdown? What's possible given the dynamics of Republican politics in Congress?
Well, I can't speak for the Republican conference, but they clearly need to, step one is come to terms with each other. They can't even seem to agree with themselves on what to do. As one member, I think a Republican member put it, they can't seem to take yes for an answer. We already have a deal. We got there in a very hard process. They need to honor the deal.
Okay, moving now to the United Auto Workers strike. We had the president making history yesterday, standing with the workers on the picket line. But I'm curious as to exactly where he stands with them. They're asking for 40% pay increase, 4-day week, things like that. Does the president support what they're asking for specifically?
Look, I can't speak to individual terms that are in contract negotiations being worked out at the table today. But what's clear is where this administration, where the president stands. This was a historic step. I don't think a sitting president has ever, at least in modern times, taken this step of going to the picket lines to reaffirm the message that he's had really from the beginning, which is that record profits should go with a record contract, record benefit, record pay for workers. And look, this is something that can benefit the entire auto sector too. When you have well-paid workers with good benefits, that also is consistent with the U.S. auto sector that is thriving. And a big priority of President Biden overall, in addition to standing with workers, is to have American manufacturing come back, which it has on his watch. Remember, last president, we had a manufacturing recession. We had jobs going overseas. We had factories closing. Now, a big part of that 13 million jobs that's been created under President Biden's watch is those manufacturing jobs. So we know that this can be a win-win. We know the companies can do well while doing well by the workers. And that's the case that the president's making.
U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, always good to see you. Thank you very much for being on this morning.
Same here. Thanks for having me on.